the outer rim, the western rim of Christianity. And I have chosen a few paradigms. I promise I won't stick to any of them, too serious. From the east, from the Egyptian desert and Palestinian desert. So there's a number of sources from the 4th and 5th century Egypt. They are monastic. You would recognize the name of St. Athanasius, the great of Alexandria, who has written the first biography of a Christian saint, like of St. Anthony, which is, of course, a monastic biography. Then his fellow disciple of St. Anthony, namely St. Serapion of Muis, and I have chosen a passage from his letter to the monks. And of course, the early 5th century collection of the saints of the Desert Fathers. And I refer here to the alphabetic collection, not the systematic one. By the way, the systematic one is not available in English, so no loss. For the 6th and 7th century Palestine, I have chosen 3 fathers that are, well, I call it a spiritual family. John Moscas is not considered a saint in the East, but he is the grandfather of St. Maximus, spiritually speaking. He's the spiritual father of St. Sophronius of Jerusalem, and St. Sophronius of Jerusalem, at some point, spiritual advisor, spiritual father to St. Maximus, so grandfather, father, son, in tradition. Okay. Let's look at St. Athanasius. In the Life of St. Anthony, chapters 49 to 50, and this is a passage that Andrew has addressed a few years ago in his beautiful paper on Torah. You have forgotten, but you inspired me to look up again at this passage. There's this moment in the life of the great hermit. There's too much people there, too many disciples, and he wants some solitude, you know, and because he doesn't have the Atlantic Ocean, where to go? Further down in the desert. So, there's no ocean there to get lost in the islands, but he found a mountain. Providentially, St. Anthony was led there to that inner mountain, so-called, because it's in the desert, by a caravan of Saracens, merchants perhaps. Anyway, what matters is when he got there, he loved the place. There's nothing adventurous in his journey because he's not alone. Well, maybe those Celtic monks were, of course, in the presence of their elders, their saints, and there was some sense of security. I think Anthony's journey is not that adventurous anyway, but he definitely enjoyed this island in the desert, so to speak, this inner mountain, where he found a clear spring, some water, very sweet and cold. In the desert, that means a lot. And he found there some palm trees. He loved the place, and he started to till the soil, whatever soil he found there, for 2 reasons. One of them because he realized that the solitude that he still did not escape his disciples. They would come every week, crossing the desert to bring him some bread, some food, and he wanted to depend less and less on their help. So he enjoyed his paradise, and he wanted to be there more on his own. You know, that kind of love for solitude that Jonathan mentioned earlier in his presentation. But there's also another reason. There are people that from time to time come to the inner mountain of St. Anthony. And St. Anthony has to show the other side. He needs to be hospitable. And he wants to be hospitable, and therefore he shares from his crops, whatever crops he could obtain there in the desert, with the travelers. So far so good. We see briefly put here in two passages in the life of St. Anthony by St. Monastic, we see the desire of a hermit for more solitude, which is not running away from the world. It is in order to embrace the world. And he chose a mountain as his destination. Why a mountain? It is because in most cultures the mountain is a symbol of the world in its totality. So he's not running away from the world. He runs away from the non-world, the crowds, the chaos of social interaction, intercourse, whatever we have to call it, in order to finally meet the world of God, God's creation. So that's one example of, if you like, running from something in order to find the world. Is this an environmental attitude? I guess it is. Definitely he did not cultivate there in the desert, I don't know how many thousands of hectares, so there's nothing caused to the balance of the place. He cherishes what he finds, and his, say, agriculturer's skills are very limited, and well, he's not intruding upon nature. Of course, there's the episode with some hyenas and other beasts coming to destroy his crops, but like the Celtic monks, he just says to them, "Leave and never return," and they do that. This is what I usually call the combat narrative. Now, his colleague, St. Serapion of Munis, also disciple of St. Anthony's, wrote a letter to the monks. In English we have only one translation, done a few years ago, 2011, published by Father Oliver Herbel from America. The book was, however, published by our friends in Brisbane, Center for Early Christian Studies. And I have chosen this passage because it illustrates how the ascetic life of the monks of Egypt is considered by St. Serapion beyond its immediate, say, spiritual crop or fruit. It's an environmental dimension associated with this assessment. And I'm reading from that broad passage, a few bits. The desert is being, sorry for my mistake there, the desert is being exalted through you, and the inhabited world is saved by your prayers. So the monks are like ecosystemic agents. I think there's something very cultural here, very Egyptian. Perhaps you know from ancient history, the pharaoh was represented as keeping the world in balance, the cosmos in balance. So the monks, in their humility, reiterate and bring to well, success the pharaonic task of creating balance in the cosmos. The rain is sent down upon the earth by your supplications. The river, that's the Nile, makes known the power of your supplications. Therefore, the city of Alexandria is blessed for having you as mediators. The monks are there, you know, outside society, but not outside God's creation, not outside the world. And as a matter of fact, being in the image and likeness of God through their asceticism, and of course I couldn't give you everything here, asceticism, prayerfulness, vigils, and so on and so forth. They are like the guardians of God's creation. And they are there like providential agents, if you like, working together with God in order to balance to the world, to help the world maintain its cosmic, that is organized status, instead of falling into a chaotic state, which is dangerous, of course. We don't want to live in a place that is not beautiful, balanced, organized, holy, comely. A couple of generations after St. Athanasius and St. Serapion, the monks of Egypt managed to put together a few collections of saints, brief stories about the monks of the 4th and early 5th century. But we don't know with any certainty who put together these collections, but in the alphabetic collection available in English, we have a series of examples that are, well, let's say, very environmental. I haven't given you the texts there, but if you check those passages in the collection that is available, you'll find how relevant these are. For instance, in the sayings attributed to St. Anthony, number 36, there's about one's self-restraint, engratia, self-mastery, which makes one like Adam and Eve in paradise. The beasts are no longer wild, they are tamed in the presence of the one that first of all tamed his or her own inner beast. So there's the balancing the outer world in the environment is impossible without an inner balance, first of all. So there is this, well, let's call it anthropic dimension. The human being is important. The human being, we know this from an early Alexandrian writer, Clement, at the end of the 2nd century, that we make waves or ripples in the world. The way we live affects the whole universe. Either we're good or bad, makes a lot of changes, not only within our lives, but in the whole of the cosmos. Ava, Vissarion, the first 4 sayings attributed to him or related to his life are very environmental. They refer to water miracles. No oceans again, but there's the Nile and there's this, and at some point the monks reach the Mediterranean shore and they don't have water, and the saint just says a prayer there or makes a sign of the cross on the water and they can drink. You know, the Exodus story repeated once again, but this isn't just a story. As a matter of fact, if you look at these brief monastic narratives and you want to take them seriously because these people weren't mad, weren't crazy, then they give you glimpses into the reality of many of the stories in the scriptures, which we would be tempted to take as nice metaphors and all that. Of course, everything, all the events, all history is represented, reimagined. Yeah? And we have seen in the Celtic experience, you know, they go in the open sea, whatever, or the ocean, they explore, they are seekers, but they are not only a group of people. They carry with them their stories, their narrative, they carry with them their apocalyptic mentality and so on and so forth. And therefore all those events are dressed up in a certain color, if you like, or some vestments which make the events digestible, computable, if you like, in their terms. A very interesting story, which is no longer a matter of human survival in the wild. The story of John the Dwarf. As a novice, he is sent by his elder for many days to a distant place in the desert, go there, walk, so he carries water with him, and he has to walk the whole day to that distant place in the desert where there's a stick, a wooden stick, dry stick, how do you call it, fixing whatever in the sand. And he waters that stick, and after 3 years the stick is alive. So this is a beautiful metaphor of this ecosystemic agency of the saint. The saint really changes the world, not only maintains the balance, but also brings the world to a paradisal state. Then, perhaps one of the most beautiful and yet ignored stories, the second one in the series of Macarius the Great, has a beautiful description there. Macarius tells to other monks about two young monks whom he found in the middle of the desert in a small oasis, living there like the angels. And of course, there's the only place where there's water for a huge area of sand dunes and that. There's food and there's water there, and the animals of the desert come there and coexist with the two saints. It's one of the most touching stories in the saints of the desert, where paradise is no longer lost, it is restored, recovered, retrieved. And one that looks like the story in the book of Kings, or the books of Kings with Saint Elijah, Zoius, the second story. There's a long time drought, and through the prayers of the saint, the rain comes. Now, moving to Palestine, I guess many of the stories in John Moskas's spiritual matter are inspiring and on many levels. One aspect that is not actually discussed in scholarship today is precisely the environmental dimension of asceticism as presented in many of the stories collected by Moscas. I found only one source, an old article from the 80s by Henry Chadwick, the famous patristic scholar and humanist, dealing with Moscas more generally, St. Sophronius, and he points out the fact that in Moscas's Limonarium, or spiritual matter, nature is cooperant. There's a synergy between human agency and elements, natural elements, or natural elements of the natural world that coexist. Of course, it's not only about coexistence there, and I found in spiritual matter basically two kinds of stories, combat stories and coexistence. Just this month, an article was published. Well, it was actually resulting from last year's symposium in Colloquium, the journal in Melbourne, and I published my analysis of spiritual matter from an environmental viewpoint. If you're interested, go to my Academia EDU account and you'll find it there. I want to point out a few aspects in relation to the spiritual matter. First of all, the very strange title, metaphorical, heavily metaphorical title that the book has in Patrologia Greca. There are many manuscripts, and the manuscript tradition of the Limonarium is very rich. In some or most manuscripts, the book is simply called Paradise. But in Patrologia Greca, for some reason, there's this longer title, which I translated. I don't know yet how accurate my translation is, but still, I dealt with in that article, the Meadow, which presents the narrative of the heavenly rose garden by way of saints' luxuriantly blooming lives. So, the ascetic lives, or the lives of the ascetics in the Palestinian desert, in the desert of Jordan, far from being poor and full of abstinence and famine, hunger, and all that, you know. These lives are represented by Mosques as being actually paradisal. It's a paradox of perception here. Again, in our adventures we are followed, pursued, if you like, by our stories. And in this case, you know, the story of paradise, you know, what the Celtic monks were seeking in the ocean, these hermits in the desert of Jordan find themselves, you know, they run from something, get into something else, encounter God's creation, they live very simply, yet in that simplicity they retrieve paradise. This title, the message of the title is somehow explained or expanded or unfolded in the prologue of the writing, which unfortunately we don't have time for to go through, but it's a beautiful prologue, full of metaphors, and Mosques goes to describe a meadow in spring in great detail, from the colors and the scent of the flowers to the chirping of the birds, you know, that thing that Jonathan mentioned about birds, maybe there's something there, so on and so forth. And all this beauty and all this harmony is a metaphor, explicitly, of the lives of these saints. It's an amazing association. On the one hand, the rigors of the ascetic life in the desert, on the other hand, these stories, paradisal imagery, which veils, if you like, the actual events. What I found very interesting in the spiritual matter is a specific form of a very green form of asceticism, so-called grazer monks or Steve. And I have given you there a few chapters, where you find stories of the grazer monks. Why is this very interesting? Because they live so simply that they refuse to till the soil. It's not a matter of laziness, it's just a matter of respecting God's creation, and they interact with God's creation directly, no tools. So they eat whatever they find in the fields. That's pretty heroic, you know? But this was their choice, their vocation, if you like, that they embraced. I believe that this is an extreme form of green environmentalism, you know, very radical. I don't know how many of us would dare to eat only what they find in the fields, whatever. Maybe we should take some lessons from the owners of the land, the actual owners, not us who purchase properties, but the owners of the land, those that live here for tens of thousands of years. They know how to live here, we don't. So we do mining instead, and other very interesting things. So there are basically two kinds of stories, and again I have indicated a few chapters that illustrate those stories of coexistence. They involve mainly animals, particularly lions. There's, you know, like the boar in the Celtic stories, we have lions here, and some are good, some are bad. I cannot get into any detail with this, but maybe just to point out the fact that there's there the moving story of Abba Gerasimos of Jordanian monastery, who healed a wounded lion. That lion spent his I didn't say eats, and you'll see why. Spent his entire life afterwards like a monk, a disciple of Abba Gerasimos, to the extent that for his faithfulness, the monks called him Jordan. So this is, when you read this story, you see that these people have a deep appreciation for life, for that animal that showed much more humanity than many other human beings, or so-called human beings, and there are negative examples in the story. I remember what Father John Costache said last year in September, we need to put faces on things. Well, this is what those monks did. They put a face on that lion, who's now Jordan. To the extent that Moscas, at the end of the story, had to make a point, well, this doesn't mean that Jordan was a human being, rational, and so on and so forth. That was a lousy way of finishing a very beautiful story. An example which is very clear to me, an anonymous monk who lived for like 80 years in a monastery, and not much is known of this monk's life, asceticism. The only thing that we know is that when he died, according to Moscas, they couldn't find anything, any possession in his cell, in his room. Absolute poverty. And he was equally generous towards people, and there are examples, it's a longer story, number 184, towards people, but also animals. And my excerpt there refers to his generosity towards animals. His elder was rise early and feed all the dogs at the monastery. He would give flour to the small ants, grain to the bigger ones. He would dampen biscuits and throw them up on the rooftops for the birds to eat. The providential agency of the saint is again obvious in this story, but you don't have to do, you don't have to write, policies, enroll in Greenpeace and the Sea Shepherd and stuff like to do the right thing. You can do, as Philip told us in the words of the Patriarch, if you live simply or simpler, and we do, then you can share what you have with others, including the voiceless or unheard voices of the animal world. There is one time up. Just briefly, in St. Sophronius, so the spiritual son of Moscas, there is another lion, a reverent lion, pious, a devout lion in the life of St. Mary the Egyptian. Well, scholars debate, is the life of St. Mary really written by St. Sophronius or not? Well, I take here the lion of tradition. Yes, it's by St. Sophronius, and because there's a lion there that plays a very interesting role towards the end of the story of St. Mary, I believe that at least that part is written by St. Sophronius, who learned a lot from his spiritual father about good lions, repentant lions, saintly lions, dare I say. So this particular lion came to assist Zosimas, an elder in the desert, to bury the body of the female hermit, St. Mary the Egyptian. Zosimas was, of course, frightened when he saw this lion arriving, but it seems that this was the lion of Mary. Because when the lion came, it went, this one doesn't have a name, so it's an it. It went to lick the feet of the dead saint. Similar stuff you can see in Moscas in Monari, in spiritual matter. So there should be some connection between the life of Mary and St. Sophronius, given Sophronius' training under Moscas. But something that goes beyond these simple examples taken from the everyday lives of the monks in Palestine, you see the beautiful theological, cosmological narrative of theophany prayers. We have them recited in the church of January for the great blessing of the waters, and they are attributed, tradition attributes them to St. Sophronius. I think if you go, if you undertake some comparative analysis of some texts that are really written by St. Sophronius and the Theophany prayers, you'll find a lot of similarities. So I accept, or I go by tradition once again, that these are by St. Sophronius. It's what he says. So whatever happens with the saints in the desert, this is what we have already seen in the life of Christ, when Christ descended to the river Jordan to be baptized by John. Today, so it didn't happen 2,000 years ago, it still happens. Today, the waters of the Jordan are changed into healing by the presence of the Lord. Today, the whole universe is watered by mystical streams. Paradise has been opened to humankind, and the Sun of Righteousness has shone upon us. The darkness of the world vanishes with the appearance of our God. All creation is illumined from on high. The celestial beings celebrate with those on earth, and earthly beings commune with those in heaven. See, the same story that we find in the narrative of Nativity. Yeah? In Matthew and Luke, for instance. Not only people, but the elements of the universe, visible and invisible, come together, gather, congregate around the Christological event, and so on and so forth. And just briefly, I'll point you to a chapter that I published last year in the Handbook of Maximus the Confessor. It's precisely about this. It's an analysis of chapter 41 in the Book of Difficulties, otherwise known as Ambigua, where we have a contemplative narrative of everything. In modern times, cosmologists enjoy writing narratives or theories of everything. Well, there's one in the 7th century written by Palestinian Constantinopolitan monks and Maximus the Confessor, where we see the entire reality described as a coherent, dynamic reality on its way towards further unity, complexity, coherence, and the engines of this process of unification of reality are on the one hand natural, so there are elements inbuilt in God's creation that make possible this coherence of reality. On the other hand, there's the anthropic, the human element, and he speaks of a life befitting the saints. So a virtuous life, an ascetic life, a prayerful life, a life of love and compassion, which make the world round. And the more mystical dimension, because of our failure to fulfill the divine project of unification, Christ is the one that does it for us. As a human being, he says. Why he says that? Don't accuse him, inverted commas, don't accuse him for being so successful because he was a God. No, he did that as a human being, showing what we are supposed to do. On the other hand, the result of the unifying process is the accumulation of all aspects of reality, the unification of all aspects of reality, their transformation into another human being, and the whole of the cosmos unified around Christ and by Christ, that is the human being, inverted commas, and converse with God, the Creator. Well, that's it for now. Just in 2 words, there is a lot of cosmos and life and nature in the experiences of the ascetics. Doesn't matter, is it the ocean desert, is the sandy desert. What matters is for these people that is that in their way of life, they not just accomplish something on a human level, but they accomplish something on a broader scale, where the human being is together with God's creation in one doxology. The liturgical dimension is here. We have already heard Robert and Jonathan, and there's no point